Everybody take their seats, please. We're going to do the pledge. You want to do it from there? You're more than welcome to.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll do roll call. We have Mr. Skalitsky and Mr. Hallman excused.
On behalf of the Kenosha Achievement Center and the Kenosha Dream Playground team, and I'd like to present this to the County Board Chairman. This is an adorable drawing by Amity, the little girl who was here for the presentation, the check passing. And I'm sure the Chairman will have it available for people to review. This is addressed to Kenosha County Executive Jim Cruiser, Kenosha County Board Chairman Ed Kubicki, Kenosha County Board, and citizens of Kenosha County. On behalf of the Kenosha Dream Playground Project, we want to thank you for embracing our vision and for making a generous contribution. Your generosity is helping us move closer to reaching our financial goals and making the dream become a reality. We are delighted that you have volunteered to help us build the playground, and just remember, you still have lots of time to sign up and send us your applications to help actually participate in the build. You will become part of this living legacy. With your continued support, you are helping to facilitate equal play opportunities for children of all abilities. Please take pride in knowing that you are helping to enrich the lives of many people in our community and in the region. The Dream Playground is funded by the community, built by the community, and will be enjoyed by the community for many years. Can we build it? Yes, we can. And on their behalf, they also created this lovely series of photographs that the County Board Chairman will have displayed in the Chairman's office. So on behalf of KAC and the Dream Playground team, thank you so much.
Thank you. Just want to say a few words. I wish Tammy could be here tonight, but as you all know, Tammy's out there garnishing more money for this project, so she's busy out there trying to gain some more dollars to get this thing going. As you know, that we will have the pre-build will be in August. There'll be another build in September, and we look forward to having your help on this project. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to citizen comments. Please state your name and address. You have 5 minutes to speak.
I'm Janelle Twing. My address is 6307 43rd Street, Unit 177 in Kenosha. I'm a legal secretary at the courthouse. Good evening, Honorable County Board Supervisors. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on behalf of the legal secretaries. We do understand the importance of the study and the benefits of the study and are not here tonight requesting this resolution not be passed. In 2000, the title of legal secretary was created specifically for the clerks to the judges and courtroom commissioners of Kenosha County. To this day, we still perform the duties outlined in the legal secretary description on a daily basis, as well as the additional duties that have been added in the past 15 years. We believe an injustice has occurred with this study. That is, we have been demoted from the NE6 category to the NE5 category. Presently, we are legal secretaries and are in the NE6 category along with other parallel positions. This study has demoted us to the NE5 category and suggests the title of Deputy Courtroom Clerk. The duties and responsibilities required of us in our present positions are that of the legal secretary, and we believe that we should remain in the NE6 category as a legal secretary. Once again, thank you for allowing me to speak here tonight on behalf of all the legal secretaries.
Anybody else wishing to speak? Anybody else wishing to speak? Anyone else wishing to speak? Okay, citizen comments are closed. Move on to announcements of the chairman. Just to remind you all that our next meeting this month, we'll have the new youth and governance will be put in place, and we'll be meeting up here at 7 p.m. for refreshments and to get to know one another. And that's all I have for now. And we'll go on to supervisor report. Supervisor Elverman, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of brief items from highways and facilities and golf and parks. As anticipated and as I reported in the last couple of months, the golf division has ended up with their revenues exceeding expenses. We're not really calling this profits and losses. By $88,000. So that's 3 years in a row that we have been able to do that, and last year was under some very adverse weather conditions. So that's what they've spent a lot of time doing, trying to cut expenses. Revenues exceeded expenses 3 years in a row. And as many of you that have been here a while know, our debt service on that operation ends this year. So we are looking forward to that and looking forward to the tightening that they've done on their belts to run that operation. Other people have been curious about the bids that we put, or the RFP that we put out for someone to run our catering and beverage services at the golf courses. We didn't receive any favorable responses, anyone that was felt to be able to handle that type of operation. And for them to turn a profit, for us to turn a profit. But right now what the committee is doing is looking at a couple different avenues. As you know, it's a state statute that rules that the county couldn't hold a liquor license out on those properties, and we're looking at seeing what kind of traction we can get at the state level to have that changed. So that is the direction, because our people seem to be doing a very good job of operating, and if we could get that lifted, we could probably run even a much more streamlined operation. The Brookside work is ongoing. The construction managers, all the architectural work is being done, and everything is falling into very close to our original estimates. We are looking at a couple of add alternates, and that will be reported as that work is further looked into. The highway department is looking up. I know I reported that last month that asphalt prices had decreased by around 12%, which brought our ability to do more paving. We had done and had planned on doing 13 miles of paving this year. We are, with the same budget, going to be able to pave 15.32 miles, over 2 miles more. Local Road Improvement Fund is 50% funded through the state. We have leveraged that to a very high level this year. We're going to be paving a total of 21.89 miles this year. So that is the highest we've had, I believe, ever that we have paved. And if you look back 5 years ago, we were struggling to do 11 and 12. That still leaves us 31 untouched miles. We use a grading system. Mr. Sipsma has graded these roads, knows what needs to be done, the highest priorities, and we're really in very good shape on this program for the first time in a long time.
Thank you for that
Thank you.
report. Supervisor Poole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be leading the initial Walk Your Socks Off for Wellness program on Wednesday, May 13th at 6:30 p.m. around Paddock Lake, and also on Saturday, May 16th at 8 a.m. in Paddock Lake. And Kenosha County businesses are encouraged to get employees together in teams to compete for the Stinky Shoes Trophy. The competition runs from May 15th through August 15th, and the team with the highest average miles walking and running wins the trophy, and also growlers of Benjamin beer. So send me an email to my county email if you or your company wish to participate. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Supervisor Poole. Supervisor Rose, you have the floor.
Thank you. I want to bring to all of your attention and highlight an article which appears in the county news. You should have received that today, at least mine came today. Front page, something we've talked about. New campaign will focus on keeping mentally ill out of county jails and state prisons. This is a new initiative, a combination between State Government Association and NACO, partnering together to reduce the number of people with mental illness in the county jails throughout the country. This is a national problem. We've discussed it before. I think more needs to be done, and I would certainly recommend this article and some of the suggestions in it to the Judiciary and Law Enforcement Committee to take a look at that. Perhaps NACO could be contacted and assist us, as they have some ideas here that are certainly worth exploring.
Thank you, Supervisor Rose. Seeing no other lights, we'll move on to county executive appointments. County Clerk.
Kimberly Brunig to serve on the Kenosha County Housing Authority Board.
Refer to Finance and Administration Committee.
Dr. Rita Kadamian to serve on the Kenosha County Board of Health.
Refer to Human Service Committee.
New business, one reading, Resolution 1 from Finance Administration Committee, a resolution to approve the recommendations of the Classification and Compensation Study. Rose, no. Ron Frederick, yes. O'Day, yes. Brunig, yes. Kohlmeyer, no. Dodge, yes. Gens, yes.
Vice Chair of Finance, Ron Frederick.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to approve the report. And if I can get a second, I have some comments to make.
It's been seconded. It's been moved by Vice Chair of Finance, Ron Frederick, seconded by Vice Chair of the County Board, Bruning. Ron Frederick, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 2 weeks ago, this board discussed this quite extensively, and it was decided on a very close vote that we should send it back to the committee for a review. Last Thursday, Chairman Rose held a meeting for last Thursday, and to suggest that the meeting was a lively one, and it was. There was a big crowd there. There were a lot of comments. There were motions to approve certain things. Somebody made a motion to approve the legal secretaries to change, and that declined. Anyway, the final. I'm not going to bore you with the whole meeting, but anybody that was there, obviously, that they were interested. The bottom line is that the recommendation came back from the committee and in a 5-2 vote to recommend that to the county board that it be adopted with no changes. Just a few comments of the study. The study has established a market baseline for total compensation, wages, and benefits for county employees. For your information, if you don't know, for the most recent study occurred in 1996, 19 years ago. And that was for the clerical employees, and managers was 1999. The results of the study are vital to maintaining competitive advantage for employees in our market. 150 jobs were placed, 119 had increases, 25 had decreases, and there were 6 newly created jobs. And the one issue that seems to be concern of everyone is, and it's also the divisions and department directors who have reason to believe that positions under their supervision are not in a correct earning category can appeal the placement through a reclassification request in the county budget. That concludes my remarks, Mr. Chairman, and I'm sure there will be some heated debate. Thank you.
Thank you. We've got a few lights up already. Supervisor Anita Johnson, you have the floor.
I attended the Finance Committee meeting, and I was very disappointed. We here as a group on the county board sent it back to the Finance Committee for them to look into some of the issues that were discussed here on the board floor. During the meeting, many people got up, I think even more so than here because our judges all spoke. Unfortunately, the only new information that came out at the meeting was that there actually is no appeal process. What is called an appeal process is when a manager has to bring it forth to Mr. Riddle, who then decides whether or not it has merit, and if he decides it has merit, he elevates it so that it eventually gets taken care of in the next budget. That is not an appeals process. If this had an appeals process, I would support it. The second thing I want to talk about, I conduct studies for a living, very big studies, even sometimes corporate wellness studies, which are contained in actually very similar in nature. What I want to point out is, when we're done with a study, what we do is we clean the data. We make sure that everything is accurate and the input is correct. If the input is not correct, your output is not good. What we do is we let it be reviewed by stakeholders. That wasn't done here. If you let stakeholders review one little piece, so let's say the judges got to sign off on their own secretaries, but didn't see the other legal paralegals or legal secretaries that would be in the same group at the same time, they would have nothing to compare it to. So there are things, and I don't even want to stick on the legal secretaries because there are more issues than that. There are issues of insurance. There are issues of people who weren't able to fill out their job description completely, which in and of itself I have issues with. I mean, if there were people, well, let me just get back to that. There are people who could not fill out their job descriptions completely and were never allowed to correct that. Other people had the same issue and they were given a remedy for it so that they could fill in the fields. The fields only held so much data. They could not fill theirs out completely. It is not accurate. Those people should not have to wait for the next budget to be passed for somebody to address it. There should be an appeals process now. My biggest angst with this is that we have an opportunity here. We purchased something with taxpayer dollars, quite a few taxpayer dollars, $170,000, I believe. We purchased a product. When we purchase a product, we should ensure that it's a good product. We owe it to the taxpayers not to pass this because we paid for a study, but we owe it to the taxpayers to vet this so that it actually is accurate and it does a good thing. If we pass this simply because we paid for it and because our employees need a raise and we just don't want to put in the extra effort to fix it before we pass it, that is wrong. That is fundamentally wrong. We should not be sitting here in this chair if we cannot do that for the taxpayers. One thing else I wanted to point out with regard to a comment that I keep hearing about, the legal secretary should not be upset because they're getting a raise. Let me put that in a perspective for you. Let's pretend that this half of the room is reclassified as Class A. We're all County Board supervisors. This side is Class B. Because we filled out our own job descriptions, let's say ours over here vary a little bit. Would you be happy if you found out that you got a $1.60 raise? Probably. But how would you feel when you found out that we got a $10 an hour raise? Do you get that? It is not a matter of just these guys, and it doesn't matter that they got a $1.60 an hour raise. There's more to it. It's more convoluted than that. We bought a product. We asked the Finance Committee to bring this back to the vendor with these questions and let her explain why they are the way they are. That is a perfectly acceptable thing to do, and it's what we should do. We should make her accountable for everything that is in that report, and that's what we should do. If there are questions about insurance differences, if there are discrepancies, if there are omissions, we should have a list. And yes, it's going to be work. There are going to be people who complain, but you know what? That's what you do. If I tell you what, if my response was when somebody came to me in the business world, that, oh, that's too much work, there's going to be people coming out of the, how are we going to deal with, you wouldn't have a job. If there's a problem, we need to address it. We need to fix it. We have an opportunity. We paid for a product. We can make a list of what's wrong now, bring it back to the vendor, have her justify it, and then pass it with a real appeals process.
Thank you, Supervisor Johnson. Supervisor Dodge.
Yes, I'd like to mention that the last meeting I said I needed to abstain. I was informed by Corporation Counsel that because none of my family members are a part of this study, that I will be able to vote on and debate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Dodge. Supervisor Ritzloff, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think people that heard my presentation Thursday that were there, the supervisors, pretty much know what I had to say about this study. I guess two things I'm surprised at. Where is this person tonight, and why wasn't Heather there Thursday night? I'll tell you, in my business, for $170,000, I'd bring in donuts, I guess. I guess you can't do that, but I'm surprised she's not here to answer some questions. Put everything aside. Everything revolves around, in my opinion, this study really did not present a lot of the other benefits properly, and I think Anita Johnson somewhat touched on this, and that's the health plan. The health plan has to be analyzed if we are to stay competitive with the private sector. That means it really needs to be looked at. The study did not look at the plan of benefits. It just looked at the contribution levels. That's to me, malfeasance. Because she's presenting something that is totally misleading by just looking at contribution levels, what the employees pay. Anywhere from 1 to 10%, that's at least 15%, if not more, than what the private sector has. Top that off with the fact that the health plan for the network benefits has no deductible, no co-insurance, no out-of-pocket expense. It has some very minor co-insurances that, if you're in this industry, does not exist like that. I would ask her the question, if she was here, name one employer plan that she looked at that has that plan of benefits, and I guarantee it she'd say there are none. I'd be shocked if she found one. The second thing, she didn't present real well. You talk about the retirement benefits here. She just mentioned a couple quick boiler points. Tremendous difference between a defined benefit plan and a defined contribution plan that the private sector has, basically a full pension versus a 401k. You're comparing something that's basically guaranteed to something that is a whim by the stock market. You can think in 2008 how many employees in the private sector market, their 401k's retirement went down by 40%, where if you were here at the county, it didn't. That's okay, that's part of it, but that is a tremendous difference. So I think you know my stance on this health insurance, but I really think we have to look at this. We owe it to the taxpayers. It's a $20 million, 800-pound gorilla around here. And to leave it as it is, I think, is really not doing the people that we represent what they're expecting from us. And if you top that off, too, if you look at one more thing, there's a whole bunch of problems with that benefit package, the health insurance like that. A lot of the employees here may not want all of our compensation dollars tied up into that. we theoretically, if we looked at this thing, could maybe give more salaries that would even be more competitive. Anyways, I think you understand my point on this, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Ritzloff. We're going to move on to Supervisor Noble.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also attended the Finance Committee meeting, and in that committee meeting, I listened to people concerned about the judicial clerk, legal secretary's position. Highway workers spoke with concerns. Child support specialists spoke with concerns. One person spoke, and I actually was on the Finance Committee back in the 90s and mentioned how the study that was done back in the 90s was much more transparent, which was the exact word she used. Health insurance, the fact that one of the supervisors felt, Supervisor Ritzler felt that health insurance wasn't addressed properly. I felt that job security, in a nutshell, there's a copy of what I all said, but the nutshell of it is that job security I don't think was addressed very well in the comparison to private to public. So that's just a summary of everything that was said in a half an hour, and the committee met for maybe another 20 minutes and decided to just pass it on as it was without addressing any of that. A motion was made by Supervisor Kohlmeyer to refer it back to the consultant and have her justify everything that was brought up during that meeting. I thought that was a motion made sense. It failed on a 4-3 vote. I think, at least for myself, I would like to weigh in on that vote, so I'm going to make a motion to refer it back to the consultant to address everything that was addressed in the public comments during that committee meeting and bring it back for a justification. That's what you've had a couple supervisors say.
Okay.
That's my motion. I think I have a second, didn't I?
You got a second.
Oh, you're asking for corporate counsel opinion?
That's correct. Okay, so we have a motion by Supervisor Noble to send it back to the original consultant and revitalize or relook all the issues that were brought up at the finance meeting, at this meeting by all parties?
Yes.
Is that what your motion is? And the second is over here by Anita Johnson on that?
Back to the consultant, right?
That's what
Not to
we're
the
talking
committee,
about
but-
now. We're
yeah.
talking about to the consultant. That's why I just said back to you and you agreed with me.
Yes.
And you agreed to that. Is that debatable then? All right, now that's under debate now. So this is what I'm going to clear the board right now. Anybody that wants to talk about sending it back to consultant, we can talk about it right now.
I said pretty much everything I wanted to say, but the only thing I do recall the last time we did this for the employees back in the 90s, and I do believe I didn't go back like the employee that came forward and spoke and look at that report, but I was on the committee and I recall it to be a much smoother process than what we're experiencing with this report. So I just want to say this report is not going very well, and I think it needs to go back to the consultant. Thank you.
Is that it?
Yes.
Okay, now, on the motion, refer back to the consultants, what you're talking about, correct?
Absolutely. I just want to encourage everybody to seriously consider this. This is an alternative to not passing it, because I will not support this, and I will really encourage everyone else not to support this, to go through the way it is. I want to reiterate that This is the problem. This is why people get so disgusted with government. We're going to do the easy thing instead of the right thing. Let's do the right thing. It's going to take a little work, but we're going to fix it the way it should be when we implement it. We have enough time to do it the right way. We've already wasted 2 weeks of that time sending it back to committee where nothing was done. Just let's fix it. They owe it to us to fix it. The taxpayers have paid for this. It should be good. It should be solid. It's a common practice to bring it back with questions about why there are discrepancies or unexpected results, and she should come forward and address each one.
Thank you. Supervisor Arrington, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I'll have a twofold answer because I do agree that based on what I heard in the prior discussion before we made the motion to send this back to committee, it was obvious that we're not prepared. And it's obvious that we don't agree on how this has been prepared. And what we need to do, and I'll reiterate this, what we need to do is be thorough, and we need to be fair, and we need to be forthright. We have a group of people sitting in this area with us, and they're looking at us, and they're probably wondering, how come we cannot seem to get this done? And it's not a good look. And you all know how I am when I get on this microphone and I talk to you all as a group, that we need to make sure that when we do things, that we thoroughly vest those things. So let's send it back and get the young lady involved who prepared the study for this group on the jobs, and let's make sure that the information and all the answers are clear so that we all understand what it is and what direction we are going in. We cannot guess this thing. I don't believe that the taxpayers are very happy with us when we waste time in meetings when this should not have come back on this floor until it was prepared correctly. We owe this to the citizens that live in Kenosha County to do things correctly and not to bring them back in a hasty manner until they are thoroughly vested correctly in committee. When it gets here, it should be pristine and it should be ready to be voted either up or down. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Arrington. Supervisor Rose, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I, too, am going to support the supervisor's resolution to refer this back to the study group and then report back to the Finance Committee. I have long felt that there seems to be an effort to push this thing through quickly without sufficient deliberation, and there's no reason for it. The study recommends that the various pay schedules go into effect in July. If we don't deal with this by that date, and I certainly think we can, but if we don't, the pay can also always be made retroactive. So there are no losses here. There is no rush to judgment here. There is no tonight is the night or all is lost. One of the arguments that was made in the Finance Committee, and I dissented on the committee's recommendation as chairman. This is the first time I've done that. Every other time a proposal has been presented by the Finance Committee, I presented it to this board without hesitation or reservation. But if this proposal, which is a big proposal that may be in effect for another 20 years, isn't adequately deliberated, I'm not going to support it tonight, last week at the meeting, or at a future meeting. For $170,000, we can take time to consider it. If there's something in it that needs correction, the time is now, not later. And that was one of the arguments that I found offensive at the Finance Committee when the argument was made, just pass it, we'll correct it later. And I was also offended by the implication that somehow there is an appeal process. There is none. The only process that there is one of long-standing, and that is that reclassifications can always be recommended to the board by the administration, and we have dealt with that on an annual basis. That's not an appeal process. There were a number of people who spoke at that meeting. Judges and legal secretaries spoke on the issue that the speaker talked about this evening. And what the administration seemed to be saying was, well, pass the study and we'll take care of that later. No, I'm not going to do that. If there's a problem with it, if you want to demote these people, I want to know why now. Why is it for 15 years they've been doing the same job that they are going to be doing in the future, yet they're going to be in a lower classification and called something other than legal secretary? You know, this would not have happened if Act 10 hadn't happened. But just because we have Act 10 and the unions are without power, that doesn't mean that we have to deal with employees in an unfair manner. That doesn't mean that we can just push them aside. We'll take care of that later attitude. That's not satisfactory for this supervisor, not for 15 years of standing. I'm not going to set the county up for some kind of lawsuit brought by people who are legal secretaries in the future if this study passes in the present form. The argument was also made at the committee that, well, we've surveyed other counties, and this is what they do. And that argument, I think, also falls because, and it's another reason why this needs to be sent back. The example, they studied Walworth County. Well, you know what? In Walworth County, we learned that the Walworth County has 4 judges, and each judge is assigned 3 clerks. We have 1. They have a calendar clerk, they have a deputy clerk, they have a clerk 4. Those 3 jobs are done by a legal secretary in the judge's office, in the judge's courtroom here in Kenosha County. So you want 3 people to do the job of 1 person? Now, either the study group didn't know that, didn't study that, or is trying to hoodwink us. In any event, I want to see this thing go back. There is nothing that says we have to deal with this tonight. But there is a great deal to be said to be fair to the employees, to be thorough in the study, to take a deliberate process. There is no rush to judgment, and I urge your support of Supervisor Noble's resolution to refer tonight. It's the careful thing to do.
Is that it, Supervisor?
Yes.
Supervisor Poole, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with Supervisor Retzloff. We should not be approving this study without also examining the health insurance and retirement packages. And I will vote to send back. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Ron Frederick, you have the floor.
Just one comment, Mr. Chairman. Be under no illusions, this will not be settled by July 1st or August 1st or September 1st or December 31st. It's not going to happen. On Aaron Decker's request, they had printed up, I printed up 5 job descriptions. I used a half a ream of paper for 5 job descriptions. We're gonna go through 150 recommendations, and I don't know who's gonna put the time in or who's gonna be there when we do it. I'm not saying this is perfect, but we're punishing our employees who are sitting by watching us, and I'm sure some of them pleaded hard for the study to be approved. Of course, some of them were getting raises, but that's not the point. The point is that we're being accused of, I guess, malfeasance because we're not doing our job properly. I think we are. And I'm certainly not going to delay this thing for another 6 months. And again, I don't know who's going to sit there for about 2 weeks or 3 weeks with that consultant to go through all this stuff. It's not going to happen in 2 months, 3 months, or 6 months. So if you vote to refer this back and ask for the consultant to come in. You can kiss this goodbye for at least 6 months, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Ron Frederick. Go on to Supervisor Kohlmeyer. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just going to echo some of the comments, Supervisor Johnson, Supervisor Rose. I think we're just rushing this when we don't have to. We've got enough time to get this right on the front end. That was kind of what I was trying to do at the Finance Committee. To me, you know, the light bulb started going on when we started receiving multiple emails, letters a day, that there's probably a gap in some of these results. Seeing the eight or I can't remember how many judges were there, but it was more judges than I've seen in Kenosha County in one room together, and most of them spoke against the classification. So I think the reasonable thing to do is just at least get a defense, if there is one, from the consultant and the study as to why they came up with the results that they do, or have them go back and look at it. I think it's a common thing for a business that hires a study to do to question, to have you know, just ask for clarification, or could you possibly look at this and have her change it if it's necessary. So I just think the prudent thing to do would be to send this back. Let's get the answers that we need and pass this the right way. So I'll keep my comments short. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Decker.
Through the chair to Supervisor Retzloff. Supervisor Retzloff, did you get the information on the health insurance that you had requested from the administration regarding this study?
To answer your question, I got parts of it.
Okay, thank you very much. So I requested information the Thursday after the county board meeting, so that would be a week and a, well, wait. No, I requested it Thursday after a Tuesday meeting, so a week before the Finance Committee meeting. I did not receive an email from Mr. Riedel until Monday morning acknowledging that he had received my request. It was not till Friday morning that I got the information after the committee meeting. This is information that should have been readily available and should not have taken over a week to get. When I requested it to be sent to the entire county board, so that way all of us could digest it before the committee meeting. Obviously, Supervisor Retzloff has not gotten all the information he requested in making a determination on whether he would want to vote for this study or not, to approve this. There's plenty of information that has not been given, and to quote a past supervisor, Supervisor Joe Clark, who many of us know, on studies, garbage in, garbage out. When we give garbage to the person conducting the study, we get garbage out. I do not believe all the information that should have been given to Siegel Waters was given, especially when the administration drags their feet on giving us supervisors the information we request. So I am in favor of sending this back to Siegel Waters, and I would also like the administration to send us the information that they sent to Siegel Waters so we can see what they sent to Siegel Waters and what they didn't and should have. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to clear this. I'm going to come right to you. Supervisor Arrington, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess one thing I wanted to say, because I know that we have employees in here that are looking for an answer from us tonight, is that I myself, and I'm quite sure all the supervisors want to see you receive a raise. But this is something that we absolutely have to do, that we have to make sure that this information is documented correctly so that when we go forward in the future, that the things that we have in place will stand alone on their own for the next group of people that come in to receive jobs. So I just wanted to add that comment into this discussion to let them know that, and also to my fellow supervisors, I personally don't believe that it's your fault. I believe that the people that we hired need to do a better job with what we've paid them to do. And I guess to piggyback off of what Supervisor Frederick said, if we've paid them already, they don't have 6 months to get it done. I believe that it needs to be done as soon as possible, since they've already been paid to do this. And for that amount of money, I believe that it can be completed before July 1st. So those are some of the comments that I wanted to add, just so that people that may be wondering in the room, like, wow, are we going to receive our raise or not? We're going to do our best to make sure that we get this thing done correctly, so that not only you receive your raise, but you're classified correctly in the information that we're providing in your job descriptions, and that things will run smoothly and go according to how they're supposed to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Arrington. Supervisor Alderman, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't think I'm going to be able to add much, but I think it's been some pretty good discussion here this evening, and people have made some very good points. One point I want to make is that if I was a member of that Finance Committee, I would have requested that the consultant be there. Simple. I wouldn't sit here and bitch that they weren't there. If I was one of the employees, the 960 that are happy with the study, I would be a little irritated at the county board for holding this off. And it is true, this isn't going to happen by July. If you have the 8 legal secretaries, they make some very good points, and the judges make very good points. The people that voted against this make very good points. But I mean, that's a small group that I think we can take care of. I think their voices have been heard, the judges' voices have been heard, and I think we can deal with that. If you look at the full study, what we were asking for a couple of years ago is a way to provide retention of key people as the economy gets better in Kenosha County and surrounding areas. Well, Kenosha County's economy is getting better. We in the portions of county government that I'm involved in are having trouble with retention, and we are very nervous about upcoming construction seasons that are increasing the type of people that we lose to those type of businesses. We aren't sure. If you look at this and see the high end for a director, yeah, people think we're highly paid. We are not highly paid for entry-level people, especially entry-level people that normally are in the types of trades. That's what highways, parks, and golf facilities. That's the trades. We just had a happy time interview. We haven't been able to hire 2 custodial people for 6 months. We've had 2 empty positions because we're not paying what Amazon's paying. We're not paying what any of the factory level places are paying. So this is a study we asked for as county board supervisors. This consulting firm is being talked of as a villain here, and people are calling her that woman. Well, I think she presented herself to us with very good credentials. I didn't hear these questions asked of her that evening, and I think we had all the information then. So I would be, I'm not going to lose a lot of sleep if this gets sent back, but when you say sent back to a consulting firm, there is really no such thing. County's going to have to hire them to do more work. It's not like they had a contract to make everybody happy here. They had a contract to do a job that we asked them to do. So if we have people in certain departments, and I haven't heard a big uproar from all over the county, as I said, the 1,000 employees. If this goes, it goes back on another hired basis, and you will never get 100% approval. I think that we should approve this thing tonight, and I think the voices have been heard enough that it's not going to go away. We will cure the problems within this study. When I say we, I'm saying the administration, with the pressure from this county board. And I certainly don't have any fear, as some people have voiced here this evening, that the taxpayers are shaking their heads at us on this. I think the job has been done, and it's been done to the best of the ability and to the level that we asked them to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Alderman. Supervisor Rose?
Following the Finance Committee meeting last week, it was informally suggested that the consultant be present this evening, and she is not. This isn't going to take...
Excuse me, did you say formally or informally?
Informally.
Okay, thank you.
This is not, these problems that I think can be corrected, and they can be corrected very quickly. I think there's an effort here to cover up and just push through what we have before us. There is some dissatisfaction even by the supporters of the study to have some of the problems corrected. There weren't all kinds of employee groups making presentations at the committee. There were a few. The most vocal were the legal secretaries. The proposition could have been supported that evening. Before the last meeting, when I did make the presentation to the county board, I thought we had an agreement between the executive and myself that the legal secretaries would be placed in the number 6 category, not the number 5, and their job title would remain legal secretary, not something different. So this is a furor that could have been easily resolved at the last meeting if the administration would have brought forth the proper support through the personnel director, but that was not the case. So this reference back, I think, is a reference back to both the Finance Committee to work with the consultant, correct some of the problems that were brought, and I see no reason why this proposition cannot be brought back to the county board next month. And I think the points here are, that have been made by some of the other people who are supporting the referral back are some questions, at least some justification needs to be made as to an insurance issue or a pension issue. Doesn't mean that we're going to change anything. But at least we need to know why, and we don't know why now, except we are supporting the present system. So I see no harm, certainly I see no harm done in the referral back. There is no necessity that we act tonight or else. But again, let's be deliberative about this and refer it back to both the committee and the consultant and bring it back so that all of us can at least justify it, whether you support it or not.
Thank you. Yeah, what we're currently discussing right now is referring it back to the consultant, not back to the committee, just so we're all clear on that. Referral back to the consultant. Anita Johnson, you have the floor.
I just want to follow up with a couple of things that Supervisor Alverman said. Again, I'm going to start off by saying that I have what most of the industry considers expertise knowledge in studies. I run studies for large companies, and part of that is sometimes I have to outsource those services, those activities, okay? And what I can guarantee you is when I outsource an activity, I have never come across a company who would not justify my findings at the end with what they presented us. After we reviewed it and we've had questions and we noted discrepancies or omissions, I have never come across a company who expected to be paid more to defend their study. It just doesn't happen. And trust me, this company is a reputable company. They will defend their study for us. They will sit down and go through a list that we provide. And you know what? If it takes us 2 months to come up with that list, then shame on us. But again, for us not to do the work because it's too much work is unacceptable. We know there are issues, and I want to touch on one more thing. We cannot take care of them. We cannot take care of this group even if we heard them. There is no appeals process. And another thing I want to point out is it is not one group. I personally am aware of 4. We've got the highway department, we've got the legal assistants, we have the lady from child support, and then there's also another group that I'm not quite certain of right now, so I'm not going to mention it. But on top of that, we have the insurance issues. This is not about one group. We can be lazy and we can do the easy thing, or we can fix this before we send it back and make ourselves worthy to sit here and be responsible for the taxpayers' dollars.
Thank you. We'll move on to Supervisor Ron Frederick.
I guess if we wanted to follow the rules of certain people on this board, this is all about the legal secretaries. If anybody can convince me differently, I don't think they can. So what we're suggesting, and somebody suggested that we would get this thing back and clear that up, and then everything will be okay. I really believe that if that legal secretary issue would have been resolved, this would go through the board with no problem tonight. It's all about that issue, period, in my opinion, and you can quote me on it, because I think that's what it is. And if anybody thinks different, you know, I guess convince me, because the anger that I saw from from that night, we're going to be intimidated by 8 judges, because, and we're going to do it because the judges were there and they think that their secretaries ought to be, and I agree. But if anybody has anybody read these job descriptions? Nobody has. Well, some of you have. For the category they're in my opinion, they're properly placed. So if that's not just, if it's going to go back and take care of, it's, by the way, that was Lister that was there talking, because she wrote me a letter too. The Lister, she thought she should be a 5 instead of a 6. This is all about the legal secretary thing, period, in my opinion.
Thank you. Supervisor Gens, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to move the judges' clerks up to a NE6 over an NE5.
All right, so we have a, can we go on? Amendment? Hold on. First, right? Yeah, hold on a minute. We're going to get a little clarification from council here, okay?
Motion's to send it back to the consultant.
Unfortunately, I believe that Unfortunately, that motion is out of order at this point. The motion on the floor is the motion to refer back to the consultant, and at the risk of editorializing as a corporation counsel, I don't know what that means, and I would think that the administration would need some clarification as to what that means, because right now I don't think we're really giving, or the motion I don't think gives proper guidance, but that's an editorial point. The fact is, right now the motion to amend the resolution is out of order. We have to deal with the motion to refer first.
Okay, well, I still have the floor, right?
You got the floor.
Okay, thank you, sir. The reason I was doing that is because I happen to agree with Supervisor Frederick, and by Supervisor Rose jumping on as a second, I do believe a lot of this was based on the testimony that we heard Thursday night regarding that position. I understand this study might be perfect, not be perfect, and I know that there's a lot of hostility and people rising up to this debate, and I respect everybody that has spoken on the other side of how I'm going to vote. I do. But to say that the study was wrong, I mean, because you didn't agree with how it turned out does not make a study wrong. We paid a lot of money for this study. It's a reputable firm. I do not think our taxpayers and my constituents, I did not get one call from a constituent stating that I'm wasting their money. So, you know, if it goes back, and I do agree with Corp Counsel, the motion is very vague and here, go fix it. I mean, I don't know what that's going to cost. I don't know the time frame. I don't know how that's going to be laid out. I can understand people getting fired up one way or another, but with the number of people that we studied, the whole study was done because we as a board wanted to know how we fared in the marketplace. I mean, so this is something we asked for. And then to just bury the person who did the study and administration in this, I frankly don't agree with. So you might disagree with me and think that this needs to go somewhere else. That's fine. And don't sit there and say that the Finance Committee sat there with blank looks and didn't ask questions and didn't know what was going on. I resent that. Okay, I sat on that committee and heard the issue twice. And I did read the materials. So, you know, I agree to disagree with all of you. I will not be voting to send this anywhere. I will hold out the hope that we can just move that category tonight and adopt this and move forward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Supervisor Noble, you're talking about what now?
Well, I'm talking about, I'm surprised that Corporation Counsel, and I'm glad he did though, editorialized and said he doesn't know what that means. I made the motion, so I'm going to explain what it means, and I think everybody that spoke understands what it means, and what we're asking for is to send it back to the consultant and have them show justification of not just the clerks. If it was just about the clerks, I wouldn't have made the motion to refer it back to the consultant. I said that we want justification for all the points that were brought up. I said the judicial clerks, the highway workers, the child support specialists, the health insurance issue, and job security. That wasn't addressed at all. I don't believe in that comparison relative from public to private. And then I do believe that this consultant should look at the 90s study and see why did that one go so smooth and why this one is not going so well. Having said that, then the consultant would bring their justification back to our Finance Committee, because that's our proper policy. I mean, that's the Oversight Committee. And that's it. That's the motion. I haven't changed anything. That was the original motion. That's what everybody has spoke on. I don't understand what's not to understand to the Corporation Counsel.
Wait, hold on, let me turn your mic on.
What he just said is not what we debated and we're voting on. I mean, the Finance Committee was not brought up in his motion originally. So, I mean, if you want to restate it, we can get the clerk to read it back, or, I mean, what that motion is, but the Finance Committee was not mentioned in that motion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So do you understand what his point was there?
I think that's a minor point. I think the protocol of the, let me just say the Oversight Committee for this study is the Finance Committee. So logically, I guess it was assumed by me in my motion that it would be coming back to the Finance Committee. The consultant would go back to the Finance Committee with their justification. So if, pardon me for assuming that, I will amend my motion if the second agrees that the consultant would come back with their justification to the Finance Committee. The second agree?
All right, so does everybody understand what Supervisor Noble just did?
He made a new motion.
I'm talking about the floor here now. Hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. I'll get your mic on. Just give me a second here. Go ahead.
Thank you. Just to refine the resolution, it would seem to me that the proper wording to accomplish what you, the maker and second, want is that you refer it back to the Finance Committee with instructions to work with the administration and the consultant and come back to the board with further recommendations. I think that's simple. It's straightforward. We understand what your point is. I understand what your point is as chair of the committee, and we'll bring back a finished product. The motion as worded, I think, is unclear. I will support it, but I think it is unclear, but I think it is better to refine it as a referral back to the committee with the proposition that we'll work with the administration, work with the consultant, we'll take the debate into account and report back to you with whatever corrections we feel are necessary. I think that accomplishes what everybody wants.
All right, so what Supervisor Rose just did is amend Supervisor Noble's motion. Friendly amendment, like you could say friendly or happy or whatever makes you happy is fine. All I'm trying to say is, but it needs a second though. All right, so is everybody clear on that? Is there any more lights to talk about the friendly amendment to Supervisor Noble's amendment? You still want to say something on that? Go ahead.
The only reason I didn't, and that probably is the proper thing to do, and I will support it. The only reason I didn't do that initially is because the committee had that vote and decided, turned it down on a 3-2, or was it 4-3 vote? Because I was there and I heard it, or was it 3 whatever, we lost by 1 vote. But if the committee now is willing to take it, you know, with the administration back and get the justification, I'm good with that. So I'll support it.
All right. So the maker of the amendment, is there any more lights on? I'm going to clear the board. I'm going to go back to the, we ain't got it clear yet. Okay. Supervisor Ron Frederick, are you talking about the
on the motion?
Friendly amended
motion. Okay, so let me get this clear then. What the motion is going to do is going to refer it back to the Finance Committee, so that we can meet with the consultant to have her justify or give us reason why any employees were the one who employed, like the employees who like the legal secretaries and the lister and all those. So what do we do? Send out a notice to all the employees, and anyone not satisfied with what the consultant did, you have a right to let us know so we can ask her on all of those, or is that what we're going to do? I mean, how long does this list get? Because there's a lot of them that are probably not satisfied, but they were probably okay with it because it's really a good report. So how far does this thing go? How many people do we check on? I mean, we got 4 already, and I'm sure the list will get longer. Somebody answer my question, please. I don't know if anybody can.
I can answer it too.
One can suffice, I think. Supervisor Rose, go ahead.
All right, thank you. I think the committee has heard the debate this evening, and the proposition will come back to the committee. We'll work with the administration. We'll work with the consultant. We hear what your problems are, what your concerns are, and we'll bring back a finished product. We're not trying to overcomplicate that, and I think that's what the previous speaker is suggesting, is that we're soliciting all kinds of issues. We know what those issues are. We've heard you speak. I think the committee will have an open mind, and we'll take another vote and bring back a finished product. So I don't see this as all that complicated.
All right. Supervisor Alverman, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't see this as complicated either, but to think that you're going to do it, I would hope that the committee realizes they're not going to do this in one meeting. This is going to be a timely, consuming process, because you are going to, and we have, by this extended period of working on this, we have extended a welcome from employees that you're gonna have quite a large group at those meetings, and or an invitation, not a welcome. They will be welcome naturally, but this isn't going to be about just 8 people anymore. So I mean, be prepared, and I'm very glad that the consultant would be there, and as I said earlier, that if I was involved, the consultant would have been there in the first place. So that was probably a pretty useless meeting, leading to this debate tonight that I can see is going nowhere. So I am going to go against what I was thinking here this evening. I'll vote for this thing to go back to that committee, and if they think they can do the proper work on it before July, you know, I'd even be glad to get involved, but be prepared for more than one meeting and one letter to the consultant.
All right. Seeing no other lights.
Roll call requested.
Roll call requested. What we're voting on now is the friendly amendment by Supervisor Rose to send this back to the Finance Committee. And why don't you clarify a little bit of your points there, Supervisor Rose? Carry on. What your friendly amendment was, so we're all clear on it.
All right.
I didn't write it down here,
Okay.
so.
The proposition is to refer the resolution back to the committee to work with the Finance Committee to work with the administration and the consultant to take into account the concerns that have been expressed and report back to the county board with a finished product.
Okay, so that's what we're voting on currently. It's been moved by Supervisor Rose, seconded by Supervisor Anita Johnson. Vote yes if you're in favor of doing that, or no if you're opposed.
I mean, because that was a friendly amendment, we only have to vote on it once? Normally, if you have an amendment, oh, is that what the definition of a friendly amendment is?
That's the definition of a friendly amendment.
Thank you.
I looked it up myself here. I see you got a smile, so you're friendly. Good.
I thought we invented the term friendly amendment.
Say that again?
I thought we invented the term friendly amendment.
I'm always friendly. Okay, we'll move on to claims.
Claims, Isaiah Tellis Jr., vehicle damage.
Refer to Corporation Council.
Approval of the April 21st annual and organizational minutes by Supervisor Poole.
Supervisor Poole.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of the April 21st minutes. Thank you.
Is there a second to that? Seconded by Supervisor Esposito. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Second.
It's been moved by Supervisor Gable to adjourn, seconded by Supervisor Decker. All those in favor of adjournment say aye. Aye. Good evening.